people may not be joining from the previous class, so let's actually start out in Tai Chi Harmony. Allow your feet to touch. Bring your hands together in the center. Take a deep breath. Oh yeah, okay, join us, Thomas, yeah. We're going to start in Tai Chi Harmony, so allow your feet to touch. Bring your hands together in the center. Pull your head top up. Relax your shoulders. Relax your hips. Connect the tongue to the upper palate. Activate the corners of the mouth. Lifting the base of the torso. Gripping the feet at the bottom. Breathing deep. Relax. Let's actually do a little bit of Qigong to start. And this time we'll start with the teacup exercises. So this may be challenging, right, to start. But if you step one foot that way, because we're going to need some room for the arms. And for people playing along at home, you may have practiced this, is if you reach forward with your right hand and keeping your palm to the sky, we're going to turn a circle. So your fingers point in like you're holding a pizza box all the way around. That's good. Try to keep the palm facing up the whole time, and then coming back into the center this way. Then we're going to repeat on the other side. So breathing deep. If you know this one at home, you can go at your own speed. Remember to turn your waist. Try to keep the Tai Chi principles. We're going to use this to both stretch and practice Qigong, right? We'll go slow this time, right hand, right? So reaching up like you're making a lasso. Keep your hand flat to the ceiling. And then coming back around. This is a challenging one, right? So imagine, you don't have to learn on camera. Try left hand, right? Just go up, keep the palm facing up. We're going to turn. And then bring it all the way back behind again. And then, scooping up through. So let's actually do this. I'm gonna face the other direction for people at home. So I'm keeping both my hands at the side here like I'm carrying something, like you have a heavy weight, a cannonball in each side. And so if you turn, let's try going this direction, right? So we're gonna reach up to the left corner and then make a loop so the hand is drawing a big circle on top, right? And then reach back to the right corner and then scooping back up through. That's right, you got it, that's perfect. So now on the other side, reaching to the corner, keep the palm flat. Yep, we're gonna turn. Left. Yep, turn to the left and then circle, you got it, that's actually correct. And then go back around and come back to the center. Right side, go here. By the way, Tai Chi, part of the Tai Chi practice is creating balance between right and left. And everybody on the planet is better at something on one side than they are the other side.
Yeah, because I'm not really coordinated with this left
That's
hand.
okay. That's why they call it practice, right side.
Follow
Use the right side. So we're going up, we're making a loop, and then we're scooping behind. That's right. Now the left side, just reach up like you have your lasso, and then you want to reach behind and scoop forward. Right side. Make a big lasso, reach back and scoop. Left side, reach up, twirl, come back. Better. Let's actually, so for this Qigong,
Brian,
turn the waist. Yes, question.
can I just throw out a suggestion for Thomas? When I first learned this exercise, somebody actually, they didn't have me using a teacup, but holding, something palm sized. It really helps get the motion flowing. Anyway, just a thought.
Okay, so I feel like that will be the next level for Thomas. So this, what Charlotte is talking about is if we have an item, right? If we have some object. In the earlier class, I used my pencil. Is ultimately we want to be able to have control of our joints so that we can turn this all the way around without losing the pencil out of it. And the nickname for this Qigong is one of the nicknames for this Qigong is the teacup exercise. And I actually read that from, I think, Peter Ralston in one of his books. But the idea is that you have to do it with a cup of tea, right? So that there's no question, the pencil, or if you know, outside in the park, I've demonstrated this in Westwood with a pine cone, right? I can kind of cheat by holding it, but the teacup you can't, especially if you use the Chinese kind that have a small base. And so the ultimate goal is to be able to move the teacup without spilling a drop, right?
Right. I'm nowhere close to that level, but I do find the physicality of holding something with a little bit of weight actually makes it easier to feel the flow of the exercise. That was my point.
Okay.
So a pencil wouldn't do it, but something a little bit heavier.
By the way, this is Thomas is a great sport because we don't review this stuff before we practice. He comes in and we gear up and we do a class. So thank you for thanks for participating, all your help. Okay, so let's actually we did some moving, we did some breathing. Relax for a second, and let's talk about what we're doing, where we're going, and where we need to get to next. So the reason I want to do this application class is because it will teach the meanings of the postures for the movements that repeat the most in the Tai Chi form. So when we have roll back, squeeze, push, look left, glance right, double press, horizontal split, hook, single whip. Those 8 postures, depending on how you break them down, 8 to 10 postures, because some people looking at turn left, look right, all that, that repeats 8 times throughout the form. So if there's 8 postures and it repeats 8 times, that's 64 postures. And our form is 153 to 155 postures. So once you learn those 8, you have a third of the form covered, right, as far as what you can practice. And the reason it's important is when you're learning the form, we return to those basic 8 movements. So you won't feel as lost when we say roll back. You go, okay, I know this one. And you can get back on track and say, oh, that one thing came right before that roll back, and start to learn what happens in between. So far what we have covered is we've done grasp the sparrow's tail, left and right. And that's an introduction to rolling hands and keeping a defense layer up. Ward off, right, is expansion. Roll back. The next one is complete contraction, complete disappearing. And then squeeze, which is the center is firm and doesn't need to be rooted, right? I can deliver a punch even though my feet are moving. It's a different kind of punch than if I want to ground, which is more like a push, right? So we have squeeze, push. We talked about look left and glance right. Look left and glance right. The bottom is very solid. The top, very flexible. We can look at the trigrams for those. What's next? Double press. And double press is not necessarily a fa jing, but it's a technique for how to disrupt the opponent's direction, right? Misdirection. They're going one direction, so we push against it. And when they start to push against it, we support it. And when they push against that, we go the other way. This can be expanded into spirals and all different types of things. So double press. What's the next movement? Is horizontal split hands. And I think we had started to talk about this a little bit last time. We're going to come back to this one today. Is what we're going to work on is horizontal split. And then the next 2 is hook and single whip. And hook and single whip, both also individual techniques, but this is the first time in the form the players introduced to multiple opponents, because hook and whip is the first time we can start to deal with 2 opponents at the same time. So there is sort of a progression if you're studying the Tai Chi form, or you're studying how to teach the Tai Chi form, or what is contained in the learning. We have rolling hands, and then we have the basic push hands. These 8 are sort of the basic push hands technique and phenomena, right? Discharging, and then hook and whip. This gets into 2-player, like dealing with, you have 2 opponents, 2 people you're using both hands, one hand to both defend and attack against the other. Before we do application, let's look at the footwork for horizontal split hands correctly, because during application it's going to become incorrect. So when we practice here, I have my square facing to the north, and I'm going to step to the corner of my square, and my hands are coming up this way. So in horizontal split hands, when I step back, my hands are coming up round here. Remember, the first phase is a void, and horizontal split hands is something coming from the top. So if I can't get out of the way and fast enough, at least I have a buffer here. I'm protected, right? If boxer's going to get hit, they want to have something covering. The same way, when I step back to the corner, my circle is here. And then if you watch my feet, I'm going to turn my square. So this is the avoid, and I'm using my right foot to pivot my square 90 degrees and making contact. Here I'm connecting to the opponent, and I'm going to transfer my weight to the side and step. Let's just do the footwork to begin with. And so, by the way, one of TC's students used to, and a number of them would refer to this as a rock step, because you're sort of rocking your weight back and forth before you resolve. So from the square, stepping back, shifting to the left foot, pivot the right foot, shifting back to the right foot. And let's do the same to get back. So now I'm going to step to the square, turn my foot, and return. Step back, turn my foot, and return. Step back, turn my foot, return. Actually, we can practice. This should be much easier than the teacup exercise.
Okay.
So right from where you're at is step square, turn your right foot, good, and then step on. Yep. Now step your right foot back. Aha! You see, that's on your toe. So just make it square, step back.
So like this, and then...
Sure. By the way, if you saw that, the question was, when I step here, can I turn and do this? The question is, can I just step here? This makes us too open, right? So if I already step to this, it may be structurally a square, but I'm open. And so here, when I step back this way, and I turn, this is closed, and I still have my square, right? So stepping back, and I can also retreat very quickly, whereas here, I have to do this. So stepping back, turn, center. Let's practice a few more. And we'll go slow, right? So remember, left side and right side are going to be different quality. So step square, turn your right foot, return your feet together. Good. Now step square. Right. Just make it parallel this way. That's it, right? And now turn your left foot. Other way.
I'm not
That's it. That's okay. Here, that's fine. Right, so now step back. Use your left foot. Step square, turn, and then center. Right, now step back with your right. Turn your left foot, center. Right. Relax for a second. So the reason that we're doing this rock step is because we're stepping out of the way, and then we're going to return to that as a base with power moving in the other direction. So if I step here, if this is open, one of the reasons we want to do this is because we're moving our pivot underneath the opponent, right? So with this one, I think last week we did somebody attacking. We can use a stick to illustrate the example. Actually, before we do that, let's do the arms. We've just done the legs. So we step back. This is all based on the square, by the way, the geometry. So if I have my square step, I can have a small square here. I step to the square, turn my foot 90, come back. And then here, my square resets. I turn this foot and come back here. Right? Very clear, rock step. If you have questions, yeah.
Brian, we're learning how to get out of the way, pivot, and return to where we came from. But I assume, depending on conditions, sometimes you might want to get out of the way and return to where you were without pivoting.
Let's examine what that would be, right? So I'm getting out of the way. Oh, so that would just be a regular step. You just step out of the way and return.
Okay.
Right? Because what's this? I'm getting out of the way, and then if I just return, it's here. But if I pivot, and the reason for the pivot is, if you can imagine like a giant wheel, right? Like some kind of fantastic Indiana Jones stone carving wheel is coming towards you. You want to get out of the way and return back to your spot. So we're just moving out so that we can get behind it. So if the circumference of the wheel is bigger than me, as it's coming here, it wants to roll over top of me. I can shift, allow it to roll past me, and then get behind underneath the other portion of it, right? Something like this. And this is the concept, very basic geometric concept is somebody wants to put the weight here. So we want to scoop and turn, move that pivot point so that we have a better leverage of what that weight that they're trying to put on us is, right? So this pivot, this rock step, pivoting step is a little bit tricky, deceptive, but puts us in a position where we're behind the power to control it, right? So the horizontal split hands, let's talk about the arms, right? By the way, if you have questions, we can continue, right? Just ask them anytime, you can blurt them out, you don't have to do anything special. What's happening with the arms? So in the movement, we have the hands coming up to defend this way, right? And as the foot, if you see my foot, as my foot pivots, my hand also turning this way. Why don't we, when we first block, why don't we do this? Why do we have the hands this way and turn them? Why don't we have them up and then just catch turn one, right? Something like this. The reason is because if we start to catch, if I do like this, my opponent knows I'm ready for that. This is so they know we're going to catch and they're going to change their strategy before they finish. But if we go, oh no, it looks scary, dangerous, right? They're going to commit. This is all like the 0.005 second micro reaction. Oh no, change. So this first thing is defense. And because we may not be as fast as we think, like we said, we're here. This, nastier to get hit with your knuckles than it is this, right? If something is hitting, we use the back, the defensive this way. So we don't have the hands here in the front. And this also, here, palms are changing. So remember, we talked about this rotation of the forearm, chansi, as being a means to deflect, a means to absorb, redirect power. So as we step back, we turn the forearms, and then this is the horizontal split hands. This, by the way, this one technique contains, this first splitting contains some ideas that go into all of the other splitting, like crane. So if Thomas is tacking here, right, and the idea for horizontal split hands is I'm trying to split this joint. So I want to have one hand either on the elbow or just above it, and the other hand is on the wrist this way. And so splitting, we generally think of splitting as one direction, like an axe or a saw, cutting. And we can do that. If I just move my fingers, my hands, towards each other this way, there's pressure on his elbow and it hurts, right? And with a few small pounds of pressure, we can do some damage, right? So But horizontal splitting is also this way. I can separate his joint, right, by pulling down on this and up on this, right? So we have, I'm using my fingers to show directionality. I'm splitting this way. The other way we said splitting up and down, right? Pop the elbow this way. Other way is to split this way. And now, what's the other one, right? What if I twist? So relax your arm for a second, right? Is we have X, Y, and Z, 3 directions. And so what that looks like when we're applying power in 3 directions is this movement. It looks like a taiji symbol. So if the arm is here, right, is I'm not only applying power forwards and backwards this way, I'm pulling this way and also up and down. And what that looks like is twisting one way and twisting the other way, so that I'm separating, twisting, and pulling all at the same time. All 3 axes are attacking the joint. We're splitting it, we're chopping it, and we're separating it, right? So when we do horizontal split hands, you can relax for a second. So this has 3 dimensions. This feeling here is when you break pasta, you go to the stove and you have, so maybe like Italians are listening and they have the pasta police coming. If you break pasta, right, we just think about snapping it this way. But you can think about ripping, pulling, snapping, twisting, all at the same time. That's what's happening. Horizontal split hands has this splitting in Chinese is called liya. Liya is the idea that we would use to describe pasta, but in this case, it's a 3-dimensional one. And the last part of it is just finishing the rotation of that wheel. Questions, thoughts, comments, ideas, horizontal split hands. Square step, avoid, make contact, advance. Let's actually do it with, what if somebody's using a weapon, right? So what if Thomas has a weapon, right? And he's attacking from somewhere, right? Let's say, yeah, he wants to do this. Horizontal split hands, remember, I'm blocking here. I'm getting underneath. I won't be able to split. Maybe I can split this stick. It's white waxwood. If he's strong enough, we can create a lever to break it, right? But the splitting here is I'm going to pull down, pull across, and push up on this one, right? Do you see the leveraging power? And once I turn my waist, use my waist power, my spine, my legs, and you see my feet. So in this case, if he's attacking something over the top this way, right, is I'm going to get my pivot in as deep as I can so that I can connect his fingers and start to launch him over the side, right? If he's insistent to hold on to that club, I may not pick him up, right? I may not be that strong, but let's do the same thing again, right? If you're doing attacking something like this, right, is here. If I can get my pivot in far enough, I'm also, in this case, trapping his fingers. I can cause him to fall over. So this is, and
Brian,
yes.
what would his smart counter move to that be doing? Because as soon as you've committed your power to trying to leverage it, then he has a power if he reverses something, right?
The only 2 ways that I know how to get out of, once you're about 60 to 70% committed into horizontal split hands, the only way I know out of it is to make the circle of the object bigger. Meaning I have to jump to escape. So let's do the reverse. Let's say Thomas is splitting my hand, right? So let's try the posture together just a few times before we do this, right? So if we're here, if Thomas and I are both just facing this direction, power's coming from the corner. He wants to take that power and throw it to the other corner, right? Let's do it together, right? So we're gonna put the hands up and step back, and then turn to throw, right? But turn your body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So step back, turn. Pretty simple, right? So watch this. If I do this, if I'm reaching and he catches my arm, right, he's going to do horizontal split hands. So this is fine. Here, and then he wants to turn to throw me in that way. see here, I'm locked. My only escape is to go up, is to protect that joint from snapping, is to go around that pivot point. This is what we had talked about. The body will do some things to prevent, unless there's a type of disconnection between certain neurons or drug thing happening, the body will try to protect itself from being broken. So as my opponent comes in, my goal is to take that wheel and reduce the spiral of its movement down to the ground. And so if I'm the wheel and my power is coming across, right, if it's coming in this way and it gets caught and it wants to become smaller and twisted, I have to make my other end bigger. And that's why when you get judo, right, when you see Gene, one of our teachers for a long time, Gene was a judo player, that's how you get these huge dynamic flips, because the person on the receiving end knows A, how to fall down, and B, that if they don't, they're going to lose some kind of injury, they're going to have some kind of problem, right? So this, by the way, when we practice the form, we're practicing perfect handwriting, perfect calligraphy. So that's what I'm teaching when I say square step, turn your foot, place, return. In the real life, just like writing at the store, they say, you have to sign this receipt. Okay, you scribble. It doesn't look anything like anything. The same, right? Can be very low, right? If you're dealing with a wrestler, horizontal split hands still working, still functioning. So it can expand into many things. This one I'm not certain of a real world application. A lot of them have something. People would say, oh, you're going to do snake creeps down at the grocery store, pick up a can of beans from the bottom shelf, maybe. There's a real world application for it. You could use that in your garage, maybe not at the grocery store. This one I don't know, except the splitting part of it. Anytime you have to split something, normally we think of one directional split, add three, my teacher, 3 dimensions, X, Y, and Z on that joint, right? There's 3 different ways you can twist it. So, X, Y, Z. Horizontal split hands. Horizontal splitting hands. So by the way, that same Leah splitting, if we do crane, opening the wings, we can think of just like you're opening doors or curtains this way. But you can also think of opening the window here, right? And you can think of pressing out. So once you get that idea of a 3-dimensional split in your mind, you can apply it anywhere the Tai Chi form has a split. And there's places where we have it. Oh, you know what I wanted to do was before we continue with hook, starting into hook and whip, is we were looking at some things from the second section. One was Gaotan Ma, right side. We talked about Gaotan Ma, left side. So now we have a helper here, right, Thomas. This is, remember, we said in the first section, the Tai Chi player is introduced to two-person work. So if Thomas is standing right here, I want to see how on the camera, if I can do this. The same, I'm trying to set it up that way we're in the same direction as we're doing the form from the second section. If I'm doing, I have hook and whip here, right, and my first opponent is that way. I do avoid, make contact, and advance. My second opponent would be approaching from the south, where Thomas is. And as he steps in, this is where, see here, this is great, is when I hook this, when I'm going for this, hook here is the second Gaotan Ma, right? So let's, how do we do it? Let me turn this way, right? So if Thomas is facing here, I have the first Gaotan Ma. If I'm facing west, I have avoid, make contact, advance. Now, as Thomas is stepping in, right, I have these two here. I can block anything, doesn't matter which hand he comes with, and punch with one hand or the other. And I want to hook his neck. In this case, he hasn't stepped in, he hasn't committed enough. I might just grab his collar. I might grab his beard, his hair. I might not actually be able to connect to do the second part. But optimally, I want to get around his neck and kick, right? So this, just like the first one, right? So we have avoid, make contact, advance, Now on the other side, stepping back, avoid mid-contact, advance, right? Pat the high horse, and ultimately hitting on the back. The other thing I kind of don't want to do is the exercise. If Thomas puts his foot underneath my foot like he wants to scoop it up, yep. Now support my weight. Now steer my foot. You have to go, right? When the other person, so if you lift your foot up, I control where he steps, right? Yeah. So this is, once you have that, you only need a microsecond to get underneath it. Once you have it, you control the rest of it. So in the second section, let's relax for 1 second, is you can see if I scoop up and I have his foot and I control where he puts it, my square step is putting it in a place that's uncomfortable, my brush knee and press, right? So from the second Gao Ten Ma, scoop, now I have his foot, I can place it anywhere, and this hand pressing. In the example we're using, this hand isn't pressing, it's actually reaching to catch to make sure he doesn't fall. Tai Chi can be used for anything, right? So if somebody's attacking with a knife, we can send them down. If some friendly person falls while carrying something dangerous, we can set them upright. Horizontal split hands. One other note to point, because this is going to come back for other movements that have similar. In the third section, today we looked at snake creeping down, right? Very similar to horizontal split hands. It has a splitting. But the thing that we're going to add for this one is, last week we had talked about spin. So in horizontal split hands, if you're, just hold this like you're, from there, right? You can relax. The idea is, when I'm here, when I catch this, you can let go of it. The idea is, when I split, is that I can do a number of things with the spin that's coming off of that. So imagine that you have a stick, maybe a shorter one. Let's try this one. So the idea is, once I split, the pivot point of this, I can set the pivot point down there and literally throw it further. But I can also set, when I do the horizontal split, where my trajectory is here. So once I split, I throw it to the ground, straight downwards with gravity, depending on what you like to achieve. Because we're intercepting a rotation, and then we're adding our own spin to it. So in this particular case, what TC would say is, the most optimal is directly downwards in front of your center of position of power with gravity, right? So when we finish horizontal split hands, our chi is right in front of us to start to the next one, to hook and whip, right? There's a shape of this incoming spiral that goes down. You can spin that instead of sending it right down straight to the center. And by the way, the reason that we use that center as the guide is because if power is here, right? Maybe this is we had said the expensive golf clubs falling off the back of someone set it on top of the golf cart. And as they're falling off, right, if you let go, if I bring it to my center of power, I know what gravity is, I may be able to control it and steer it to prevent it, right? So this is, if you can do this, right, when you can accomplish this, it will look like you're throwing weight around, like you can throw around a set of golf clubs, and they say, how do you do it? I had a friend in Los Angeles, and many years ago, when I explained to him Tai Chi, he says, my grandmother used to do Tai Chi. She's this little old lady, and she would just take a couch with one hand and push it out of her way. He said, we didn't know how she's doing it. And maybe she didn't really realize how she was doing it, but this is the type of, you can control some weight, and it looks effortless. So what's the next two? hook and whip. We're going to start into that. It looks like we have about 25 minutes left. And before we do, questions, thoughts, comments on horizontal split hands. We'll do one more example with Thomas, right? So if Thomas with his, if he's reaching with his left hand, he wants to do like a chop. Yeah, like this, over top. His power, right? If we looked at the squares, he has a type of square here, I have a type of square here. The power is moving diagonally this way. So if I'm here minding my own business, when I turn, right? Yeah, I mean, if he just stops there, I can just avoid. But if he's stepping through while he's chopping, he wants to crush me, right? Like an axe or a hammer. This is the feeling, right? Is we want to take that power across that line. I don't remember why I reset that up again, so let's go back to staying in line. So, if there's not questions about horizontal split hands, we'll continue to hook and whip. We can always come back to expand these later in class. I just want to make sure that for the 8 movements that we had talked about, that we have some understanding, because you can practice just those 8 postures. You don't have to learn 155 postures. In fact, there was a very famous Tai Chi teacher in New York City in the late 60s, 70s, Chen Men-ching, and he had a form very similar to TC's form, and he cut it down. He actually, I think that he cut down to like a 13 form, or what he called a 10 posture form, which is what I'm trying to essentially teach here. He felt that the people in New York City were overworked and stressed out, and they didn't have the kind of time to invest into learning a classical long form. You don't need to learn that if you're practicing at home. Anyway, let's continue. Hook and whip. So hook is, this one is a very interesting one, because we don't have a stepping, right? We're not stepping to avoid. The avoid is coming from this pivot. So if I grip my feet and root into the ground, and you see I start to move like this, like I'm a bamboo or a tree. And sometimes this is all we need to do the avoid, right? So if Thomas is punching, right, if he punches to my face, extend your arm. Here, there's no danger, right? But here, there's a danger. If he's fully extended and all I need to do is get to here, that may be enough for the avoid. Question, yes, go ahead.
I don't quite get that, because he's fully extended with his arm, but he can lunge forward at any moment, and you have many more inches or feet of range.
Okay, so relax for a second if you take a seat. Have you ever go out your door, your back door, and there's a bug trying to get in or get out, one or the other, and so you open the door and you're expecting to go out and you do that? That's all you need sometimes. It's just that much space. This avoid is a very narrow one, right? Is this.
Okay.
And especially if you're rooted. Now, again, in a fight, I'm not going to stand here with my feet and try to avoid. That's like, it'll be like a cartoon. It'd be like a clown or something like that. But the concept that's embedded in this one, remember, let's do a revisitation of the 5 basic steps for Tai Chi. If we start from the center and I step back to the corner in either way, that's wood, right? So from the center, stepping back is wood. It's defensive. I have a strong root, and like the Matrix, I can be very flexible and rooted and dodge what's coming in. And because we're going backwards, it's defensive. If we step forward to either corner, either way, or even straight forward, forward is metal. So we have the quality of the axe cutting the wood. So when I go forward, it's power. When I go back, it's flexibility. Wood, metal. What's the next 2, right? Is if I step to the side, very quick, right? We do cloud hands. Left and right, fire and water, both moving very quickly. And we could get into fire moving very quickly up and water moving very quickly down. You can use this for your cloud hands. Do you need to root and push the person away like a tidal wave? Or are you striking, the power is going up like a fire, right? What haven't we covered yet? We have wood, metal, fire, water. The last one is earth. Earth is in the center like this. We practice earth when we're in Tai Chi Harmony or when we're doing hook. So earth is stable, very stable. If you can, here we have a carpet that's unbalanced, but essentially if you can get something to balance, it doesn't require any effort, any energy to be there, right? This stick is actually, I might have a better one to balance it with. But the same, if you take an object and balance it, there's no effort. We can stand here. In fact, there's lots of standing meditation practices. Keep your legs together and keep yourself connected and stay upright and see what happens to your chi after 20 minutes or an hour, right? This kind of thing. So, earth, wood, metal, fire, and water, these 5 steps, these are the 5 basic steps for Tai Chi. So what is the avoid in earth? Earth can't really avoid. If a meteor is coming to earth, can't really avoid. Earth only moving off of its axis a little tiny bit here and there, same way. So the pivot, if you're familiar, once you get a sense of what's happening, you get comfortable boxing, you get comfortable around other people, right? Especially if you have siblings, right? Or a child, young friends, childhood friends, wrestling, that kind of thing, you get comfortable. You know, all you need to do to avoid is move a little bit to keep away, right? So you don't get it tagged, that you don't get tagged with it. So so hook has that, the avoid is in the movement. Is this simply, and we don't, again, we're not faking anything. This, you can't, if somebody's trying to come at you with a haymaker and you say, oh, I'll just do this kind of avoid, you can get hit, right? But if the stuff is happening and you know you only need to move to here, that's an avoid. That's an earth type avoid. You have the rooted and you're just avoiding here to get to the next thing. So we have avoid, coming back to hook and whip. And the second one is make contact. And these, for hook and whip, these all blending together. And by the way, this one has, again, a lot of different applications. For this, I'm going to show it as a sort of defense-offense combo, and then also like a strike. So I have avoid, make contact, and the last one is the advance. So there's a couple different ways. If Thomas is punching in my center, right, and for this one, this is some idea is as his power's coming in, I want to wrap so that it's relaxed, so it's loose and soft. In fact, the firmer he tries to be, the more relaxed I want to be, like a yin yang, right? The harder the metal is, the softer the cotton that we put on top of it to make it to buffer it. So as the power's coming in, hook, I'm turning my waist, right? So this part is all one piece. If I just try to use my arm, keep your arm out there, keep it strong, right? If I just try to use my arm, palm is very powerful. So if I turn this, it's still there, right? My shoulder, if I just try to use my arm, I can't beat his arm. His arm's stronger than mine. But if I use my waist and this L bracket from my elbow, shoulder, and center firm, and then my wrist is loose, it's very easy to get to here, right? And so we have avoid, make contact, and the advance, like I said, my teacher, TC, liked to a lot of locking, a lot of joint grasping, so he would say you can either hook or use some fingers to go here and pull this way to like continue the person's movement. And this is, by the way, sort of one of my primary Bagua movements, but I don't end with the hook, is if we're boxing, right, and Thomas has his guard up, I like to bring the power in for me this way, right? Almost like the reverse of the teacup exercise is bring it in. And this feeling that we have with hook, by the way, so let's do another variation. Remember, we had said in this school we practice hook going out, but you may see other Tai Chi schools where they bring hook in as such. How does that work? If Thomas is punching, I can hook this way, right? Is hook that out of the way. That's how I like to use hook when I play martial arts with other people, but in the form, I like to do this way. And relax for a second.
Brian,
Yes.
watching the difference between those two, it feels like the second motion, the kind of in to out, is riskier unless you're at a higher level. That the first one is better for.
Okay, so this
Would you say, is that a fair characterization?
I would sort of agree with that, but later you can sort of do what you like, and you're going to focus in on sort of one thing that you like. And what I mean by that is, I was talking to one teacher one time, and I said, like, I sort of favor these techniques over those techniques. And he said, yeah, after a while, he said, you'll just really, for your boxing, you're going to rely on sort of 3 techniques. And he says, if you box for long enough, you'll really work it down to one technique. You'll find the way that your body moves and the thing that you like to do that's easiest for you, and you can just shut down whatever's coming into your space. So if you box for a number of years, you'll start to get to what that thing is. And for me, I like Ban Lan Shui, Ban. When I roll with people, I find myself getting into a lot of Ban because I can close them off and do my thing. And for people coming in aggressively, I like to, it's kind of like hook, what we're doing. It's like a rollback. So let's look at, what I wanted to do is just take a square step, and you do grasp a sparrow's tail and rolling, grasp sparrow's tail left and right, rolling hands. The feeling is that this movement is turning out this way. And I'm protecting from my center, right? So in this case, Thomas is punching. You don't have to even stand up. You just punch, right? To my center. Is I'm moving it away from the center like this. And this is sort of the basic of Tai Chi movement, ward off, right? And the same thing with hook. So grasp the sparrow's tail is happening down here, right? The elbow doesn't pivot as much in ward off. But hook is the same, right? We have this spiral is turning this way. Bagua, sort of coming the other way, is going inwards, right? So instead of hook going out, we have hook coming in. You can practice any way that you like to the level of your understanding. I do it this way because this is the way that TC taught. What's happening with the other hand in the movement before we continue with martial art application? So we have avoid, make contact, and advance. The other hand here, just coming underneath. Right, so you can think of it like you're holding the ball, the Tai Chi symbol, something like this. And then from here, the second hand doing its movement. So let's actually look at something else. Because just like grasp the sparrow's tail, because we're using one side, right, we're not like ward off protecting all the front or roll back, opening the front to steer them through. What if Thomas punches with his right hand? I'm just going to do just one technique, the way we do it in the form. He punches with his right hand. All right, it works, right? I can use this. This shape, by the way, is like the Taiji symbol, and structurally like a spring, very strong shape, right? So I have this. But now let's say, what if he punches with his right hand? Or, I'm sorry, his other hand. He wants to punch here. Uh-oh. We have the same situation we had before. Now my center is open, and he's here. So we have to use, if he was to use this hand to punch, I have to do something like this, right? To keep his back exposed and not open his front to me so that he comes in from the other side with something. Does that make sense? Clear? By the way, this is, relax for a second. These are going to be very challenging to practice. I want you to have, that you can see this and have some idea, what if the person is doing this? Because that is really where your once you reach that level at Tai Chi, you can start to do things. You imagine somebody is coming and you want to do hook, right? But they have a stick. They're not using their fist. So you may close this more, right? Or angle it to try to pinch, because it's a thin stick. We're not going all the way around the wrist. So how you hook it that way, using your imagination to do something with the technique is really where it's at, right? Is cultivating. If you have the imagination power to envision another person coming at you, you can cultivate all different types of things. And yeah. No, okay, yeah. It says we have 10 minutes. Should we do a little bit of hook and whip? Let's actually call that good, right? We have hook. Or we can say, remember, just like classical music, all the notes are laid out, the timing, tempo, the feeling comes from the conductor and how the musicians play their instruments. Tai Chi is the same. When we review the form, we're looking at exactly where the notes fall, but how you play the notes, if you like to play them very staccato, or you like to make them flow one into the other, if you like to make your the string section come up from one side as opposed to the horns coming in from the other side, that's all okay, right? That's fine. Questions, thoughts, comments? Let's do some closing. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Just because you are talking about hook and whip. So in the example that you showed with Thomas, that doesn't really lend itself to the whip part, right? Because you've already got him spun around. So whip is for a different situation.
Okay, so let's do the same thing again. Let's say I don't know what's happening over here. You know, you have a sensation, kind of like we talked about. You go out the door, and you may not know the dog or cat is there because you don't see them, but you feel them. You don't step on them, but your chi prevents you from doing something. I know something's happening over there. And yes, exactly. He's punching with this hand. I don't know what, but if he's punching, he's angry. He's making noise. So I turn to block. Now I have this hand here, right? This is where, if he's still reaching, is I can do a single whip. If his power is closer, I can block this way and step this way, right? Or if he's reaching this way, I can do hook and single whip here.
Oh, okay.
So relax for a second. By the way, hook and whip, they are both independent and they can be connected, just like we had talked about many of the postures. What did we just do? Needle at the bottom of the C. That might be done, right? After I break that person's grip, I might just step into them and they're done, and I have another opponent. But this is from the second section, Thomas. So here, if he grabs my wrist, right, and I do needle at the bottom of the C, and I shift, see, I might not be able to knock him off balance and just step into his frame and knock him out of the way. But the same thing again, if he grabs, use the same hand, just for, I don't know why I'm asking that. But if I turn here, let's say he's super strong and he can still hold on, I can connect it, to fan through back. Right? Are you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm good. That's what will happen.
We'll sort that out. So the idea is, we can use needle at the bottom of the C for itself and step through, or we can continue, and actually let's do one more. I won't hit you, I promise, because we're going to continue even further, is I've done my ward off, he grabs my wrist, I do needle at the bottom of the C, he still holds on, I manage to, as I'm coming this way to punch, he wants to avoid, he doesn't want to get hit in the ribs, so he starts to go that way, right? Fan through back. Right? As you can connect 3 of them up. You can connect an unlimited number of them up. Right? Relax for a second. So the idea is he's holding on, still holding on. Oh, I can't get to him, still holding on. Okay. You can combine them. But you have to know what your opponent would be doing, how they would be avoiding you. You have to think about the martial art. And this is, by the way, for people that like to practice in that way, Tai Chi is an unlimited practice. If you like to go to your backyard and practice for peace because there's birds and butterflies, you can practice that way. My teacher would say to practice Tai Chi Chuan, you have to have the fist. You can have the fist in your mind and practice a different way. So it's not a requirement. Let's do some Qigong to close, right? We'll do something much simpler. Breathing, just gathering the energy, and then let your hands float. So this is a hands-on practice for us. So just like you're reaching up, you have all the air, and then lay your hands floating. Go at your own pace. Breathe naturally. Keep your tongue connected to the upper palate. Check to see you still have at least a half smile as the minimum. And when you finish that one, return to Tai Chi Harmony. So bring the feet together. Bring the hands together in the center, and then calibrate, pull your head top up, relax your face, see all the way past the horizon. Open your nostrils, open your sinuses in your face, activate the corners of the mouth, half smile, connect the tongue. It's soft but still has the shape. Relax your shoulders, hollow your chest, empty your armpits, use your center to support, relax your tailbone, expand your back. Relax the inside of your hips and the inside of your legs. Knees are bent, not locked. Flex your ankles, pull your heels in, grip your toes, pull the outside knife edge of the feet in. Take a long, deep breath. And that's it. Thank you. And a special thanks to Thomas. I'm sorry to put you on the spot so much. Great sport, great attitude. Call, write, text if you guys have questions.